Hi, and welcome to The Process. I am your host, Dr. Masi Reynolds, by training an orthopedic sports medicine specialist. And in my world, in the injury and recovery world, we always see the podiums, we always see the trophies after the comeback. But what we don't see is the trenches. We don't see all the work and effort that has gone into that recovery process, the team that we build behind us to get us back to that podium. And that's what this podcast is about. That's what these conversations are about, is really unpacking how we went about that process as athletes, as patients, who we put on our team, and what we did to get back. And in this episode, we're talking to Jessie Salas. Jesse is the man. He's not only a friend, but an incredible human. He was a firefighter for 17 years and completely dedicated his life and his body to the service, but realized he needed to make a shift and a change for longevity. He was beating himself up. And in that shift, he discovered foundation training and has been such an ambassador and such a incredible example of that identity shift and that change. And that's why this conversation is so powerful, because he has an epic story of transitioning from a firefighter to now a coach, to a mentor, and he works with the highest level athletes. And you're going to learn all kinds of tools and tricks out there, right? And recognizing that healing isn't passive. There's so many things you can do in this healing journey, including foundation training, KAATSU, PRP, cold plunges, breath work. He talks a lot about motivation and what motivates him and how you can get up every day and do something to switch your physiology to motivate you. And I'm excited to share this episode with you because Jesse is just an incredible energy. He's a very intelligent human being and has so much to offer. And he lives and embodies mana. He lives and embodies aloha. And at his core, and you'll see, is that he just wants to help. He just wants to add value wherever he goes. And I'm excited for you guys to get to know the Jesse that I know. So enjoy this episode with Jessie Salas. But before we get started here, I want to take time to recognize one of our supporters, KAATSU. KAATSU is the gold standard in blood flow modulation. They are a world leader in blood flow optimization, in training, recovery, and rehab. Muscle atrophy in my world is the worst thing, right? Post-injury, post-recovery, and age-related sarcopenia has incredible detrimental effects on the body. And KAATSU is here to fight that, right? So it's these air straps that you can wear around your arm that cycle, they cause blood to pool, and that has so many metabolic benefits. Jesse and I on this episode talk about all the incredible benefits of that. If I'm honest, every single patient of mine and every single person should have access and should have these KAATSU straps and should be using them daily, not just after recovery, not just after injury, but daily. If you go to KAATSU, KAATSU.com, check out their straps. There's some that are wireless. There's some that are that have tubes and you put them on your arms, you put it around your legs. They're incredible. At checkout for 10% off, my code Masi, MASI. You won't be sorry that you did it. So yeah, go to KAATSU.com and hear us on this episode talk about it. Without further ado, Jessie Salas. Yeah, buddy. How's your knee?
Feeling good. I don't feel anything right now. It feels.
Yeah.
I feel like I like the sleeve that you put on.
Yeah, the Incrediwear sleeve.
Yeah,
So,
I can't describe why I'm liking it, but it's like, oh, it's cozy.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, a little context is we just got back from the clinic and did a little PRP on your knee, and not that I was using that to get you out here, but I feel like we take advantage of you being up here, and you bounce around so much, and I appreciate you just even coming up and taking time out of your busy schedule to spend time with me and chat. You're very high on my list of people, especially when we started this, that I was like, I want to get him out here. I want to chat. There's just so much I want to unpack with you. So I appreciate that. And in that, like, obviously, threw a little cells in your knee too.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm honored to be on the list. And I think having had the quick PRP injection, for me, it's always that question of, do you think that was just a lot of use? Is that old injuries that are still kind of playing their role? Like because I do a lot of stuff to be proactive to prevent falling into that category. What you as a doctor seeing it all the time, what would you attribute it?
yeah, well, let's talk about your history a little bit based on it, because I think it's part of it for sure. And I know that you've talked about it in the past before, as far as your quote unquote origin story with how you transitioned to be a very prominent figure in the in the health and training world as a coach, but also foundation specifically, right? And you were a firefighter before, and that has in and of itself all the implications that go into injury and recovery, et cetera. But yeah, a little bit into that, and then we can kind of break down what I think potentially could be happening with that knee too.
Yeah. So as a fireman for 17 years, the job's got wear and tear, years of going hard, and the PCL is long gone. That happened in the early days of firefighting. Strength and conditioning that's what kind of first opened me up to real intelligent training. And then jiu-jitsu, MCL took a bang. That was my eye opener to what true range of motion and mobility needs to be there. So that started exploring that world a lot more, and got into foundation training. Never thought I wouldn't be a fireman, but suddenly I'm taking everything I knew in strength and conditioning, and I'd say working with and helping direct under mentorship the direction we were going with the wellness program for the fire service. I had this new fascination with injuries and why this corrective exercise program was making my lifting better, was making me feel less wear and tear from the job. I always felt relatively good, but I was early 30s, and every fireman always gave you the speech of like, "Oh, enjoy it now, kid. When you get into your 30s,
Sure. Yeah, I see that every day.
yeah, it's going to start falling apart, and then just wait." And the attitude was always, it's just part of the job. My mind was going, I don't want to be that statistic. And then over time, it does take its toll. And that's where I had to start learning what it means to program correctly, how to adjust and train intelligently for your age, why things like foundation training become the non-negotiable. And somehow I got this new bridge that was slowly pulling me out of the fire service. And I just felt this calling to go. And I went, if I can give back to the fire service, if I can get this system so that more firefighters recognize the control we have over chronic pain and injuries and quality of life, if I can give that back to this career that's made me the human and the person that I am, then that can be the biggest thing I can ever do for this career. And so it was this kind of moment of, you got to leave to be able to hopefully impact it someday. And that was kind of my internal negotiation of ultimately leaving the career. So 17 years, 6-figure job, amazing benefits, all that world to, hey, you're going to go into this new and growing thing.
Right.
And, I had heard so many stories at the foundation courses, and ones that were hitting me in a way of person after person, years of chronic pain, years of back pain, debilitating pain, lives changed from an incident, and how this system changed all that. It gave them back autonomy. It gave them back a sense of hope. And I was going, there's so much more to this than anything I've ever learned about. And yeah, it evolved to where when I was leaving, my close friends and mentors are going, "What are you doing? Why are you leaving? You're going to give up your pension, all these things." I've told this to a few people now, is I couldn't explain what I felt inside other than this is the right move. And it was the same sensation of going into the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, I felt like I was destined to do that, just like I was destined to have this door open and go into what I do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you felt an obligation, not an obligation, but maybe something that you put on yourself, that is, if I'm going to leave this brotherhood, I'm going to give back in a way that's 10x, 50x, 100x than, what I can do actually in this field.
Yeah. It was, and Doc Goodman said, you can stay and there's nothing wrong with that and help locally, or you can go and it's going to be unknown. It's going to be scary, but you can potentially affect globally. And so that was it.
Yeah. I see it all the time with my young injured, first responders and firefighters, is this, this, I need to get back on the field, doc. Whatever I can do, there's this pull, right? Yes. Is like, I need to be back. I need to be back right away. And I see, patients from the very beginning all the way to what, you described the guy, the tenured guys, right? The veterans are just like, and there's almost this, like, I've given my entire life and my body to this profession, this field. And at the end, there's this emptiness because, quite honestly, at the end of the day, that it's not giving back in the same way, right? It's not being reciprocated, especially at the end. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, that job has a way of breaking you down in the sense of, and I kind of go Joseph Campbell route, where in the early days, you believe in this greater cause that you're a part of. And then through the years and through the system, and maybe the system chewing you up and not giving back the way that you've always given to it, and the passion goes away. And then it just becomes just another job. But yeah, you do sacrifice a lot. We sacrifice mental health. We sacrifice our bodies. We sacrifice relationships. And it's very challenging for people outside the fire service to understand. I try to explain that sometimes is that, you're living in this super ramped up sympathetic state all the time, responding to emergencies in the moment, things are happening, chaos, and you're coming into this and negotiating, navigating, and then you leave there and you go into normal life and you're supposed to just come down and function normally. And I think military guys coming back from overseas can relate to that, where suddenly the volume is turned way down and it's just kind of, you're just existing all of a sudden numb. And even when you leave, and that was the thing that I didn't expect, is when I left, I was always going, the job is something I do. It's not who I am. But when I left, it was all of a sudden, wait a minute, I was somebody in this organization and I was a part of something bigger than myself. And now I'm a part of something bigger, but it was a lot to navigate. There's a period where there's a lot, I've said it, like there's some, many nights that no one knew that I was, staying in my van because I was figuring out this new life path and trying to save money and living in a van, and it's all cool. But then there's some nights of like, what have I done? Why did I leave? And, crying and trying to negotiate that I've left my tribe. And then slowly that starts to settle and you recognize a new path. But there's challenges no matter what. There's challenges to stay, there's challenges to go.
That's identity transformation, right? Like it was you and that's what how you saw yourself, and all of a sudden now it's a threat, right? To not in a bad way, but like you're changing and shifting, and that comes with self-growth.
Scary.
Emotions and everything like that. It sounds very similar to a lot of the stories I hear in and around professional athletes, right? And you work with a ton of them, so you understand that, both individual sports, but actually probably more so team sports, where you feel like you're contributing to something much bigger. However, at the end of the day, they may not have your best interest in mind, right? Like you're being used in a way that, not to say that there isn't honor, right, with that, but at the same time, you have to be a little bit selfish. And that's, and maybe you can give me advice as how to communicate that to these younger first responders, because I know my role, with them with regards to injury and recovery, but at the same time, no one else is saying this to them, is that I'm trying to plant these little seeds of like, this can be part of you. It doesn't have to be 100% you. It can be a portion of who you are, but don't foreclose, right? Don't close that off and allow yourself to understand the bigger picture here. And longevity is going to be the key. And so I take these little opportunities to let them know, hey, like, don't rush this, right? Like really take this seriously. The brotherhood's going to always be there. And I know you feel this need and this want and this yearning to get back as soon as possible to contribute in the way that makes you feel alive, right? And good and have purpose and fulfillment and joy, but at the same time, you got to be selfish.
Yeah. You got to be selfish. And it's hard to feel all those great emotions when you're quasi broken, and recognizing like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be this guy that can go in and do these things, or this woman that can go in and do these things. And suddenly I'm human, and that's why I used to tell people is that it was like leaving the fire service. And this is going to be dramatic to some people, but it was almost like Superman hung up his cape and suddenly you're just Clark Kent, and you're just out there and existing. And if you go back and watch the Superman movies, the old ones with Christopher Reeves, there is that scene where he's in a cafe and he's just Clark Kent, no more superpowers. He gets beat up by all these guys. And, it's just, I think it's embracing when you have an injury. And this is still something that I work through on my own, because no matter if you're using your body, you're going to have them. Hence, I'm getting PRP injections today. But you can do everything right, and they're going to happen. And so to me, it's embracing those moments, and it's almost going, okay, how do I learn from this? How can I take my experience to help others when they get there? And not being in a rush is like looking at what tools to bring in, what new skills you can develop, what things you can take on that if tomorrow all your physical capabilities are taken away, what can you be doing? Embracing learning body, things like foundation training, body weight, learning what an isometric system is, learning the various breathing tools that Brian McKenzie teaches, and the amazing superpowers that you can develop through breathing practices. and getting into things like free diving and these new worlds, but being curious to explore beyond who you are and what you're doing now, to me, is what is, my opinion, and I'm still learning, I'm 42, but like a way to keep excitement for life is there's something that we've never experienced, something we haven't learned. And there's always this uncomfortable phase of walking into a new environment, being new, sucking. And that's why I always tell people, get into dancing, because dancing is one of those environments where unless you grew up doing it, it's uncomfortable. There's people that are really good. You're surrounded by it. And it's just the showing up and doing, the mental components, I think, is what the beauty is. Forget the dancing itself, but the longevity aspect of dancing, learning to make your brain find new patterns, all that, but being challenged out of your comfort zone. And if not that, jujitsu or surfing or whatever you want to bring in, but like let new things come into your life so that you're keeping excitement, you're being challenged, you're being uncomfortable, and you're growing.
Yeah. And I mean, that starts with being uncomfortable. That starts with stripping down all of the fear behind how you look in those moments. And I appreciate, I mean, I'll get to the question of the actual knee itself, but this is great. I want to stay on this, is that I see that with you, right? With regards to how you collaborate. And I think your and my relationship has been through injury recovery with, elite and professional athletes, and talking about my perspective and how that dovetails with your perspective on things and combining with rehab, is that you're open to everything. I mean, look, you're wearing KAATSU straps kind of right now, right? Like exactly. The blood flow restriction.
It turned off. I was waiting for my moment.
Yeah, no, I love it. Obviously, we talked about rapid release, how that dovetails and how that works really well with the foundation work that you're doing, and then how that works with their physical therapist and the chiropractor. You're open to all of it, and you've become an amazing student, but even beyond that, right? So you're a student, but you're also now a teacher and a coach. And that transition has been really cool, because it seems like you go all in on getting as much information out of those modalities as possible, and seeing where they can not only help you, but help whoever you're working with as well. And so that's been pretty cool to see over the last few years with you.
I appreciate it. I just think there's always so much to learn. And I try to be the example for foundation instructors and anybody that's looking at me from outside, is that there's always something to learn. There's always more to take away. There's so many great modalities out there for wellness that we can explore, and we can extract some extra tools from it. And I don't know, like I find it amazing to get around other thinkers and doers and practitioners, and just I'll go and watch, but then I want to know what they're thinking and why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing it. And that's what I did with Dr. Goodman when he gave me the open to come around and really start learning foundation training. Was, okay, how much can I be on top of him? And then that turned into, eventually, when I left the fire service, following him around to every patient. I was just, once we got to that point where it wasn't throwing off, I would just ask, okay, why are you doing this? Why that? Where's your mind at? Where's your mind at when you're doing this? As I've asked you before, and I look to you guys, especially, with the patients we've worked with, is what are my green lights? What are my red lights? Where's your mind with this? What would you like him doing? How can I get the best result for our person?
Yeah.
It's not just me. It's not just you. It's all of us working together for the common goal.
Right. You live what I try to preach with my patients as well, is not so much worry about what you can't do, but within those guardrails, what can we do? Right. And there's so many different modalities that I can't even speak to, that you have been able to apply to a lot of my patients. That's been really cool to see them evolve and keep them going, even beyond the physical side, is that mental side, keeping them busy right afterwards, because that's huge. I mean, and I know you're a fan of Dispenza and Joe's work, Dr. Joe's work, with regards to the nervous system, and also getting the body to feel the feelings that it needs to in order to create the right emotions, in order to create the right gene expression of proteins to provide physical change in the body. And you mentioned earlier before we even started recording, is that's a huge part of early intervention, and not just intervention, but treatment right out of the gate when it comes to injury and recovery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can go, what I tell people too, because I've had and I was that guy as a fireman, is get out of here with this woo-woo hippie stuff. But the first couple of times I did Joe Dispenza's meditations was at our foundation certifications from one of our instructors. And
is Doc Goodman, he's a fan?
Doc Goodman's a big fan,
yeah.
But it was actually a gentleman named Chad Allen who used to teach with us. And he would do these interesting versions where he would take foundation training and implement it with Joe Dispenza meditations. And I remember the first time, this was the example of being constantly in the sympathetic state of firefighting. And it was all of a sudden this calmness, this quiet. And I remember just being in this internal trying to be there. And
Force it.
And it was very difficult. And the more I did them, and then reading Joe's book was what I found most profound. Because like what you're talking about, I think he said something like 10 minutes of meditation just on happiness.
Are you talking about being superhuman?
Becoming superhuman.
Yeah.
And that 10 minutes of meditating on happiness alone upregulates the something with our immune globulin. Like we can influence our immune system in a positive, healthy way. And I was just going, that's all I needed to read. So we have this control, and then it's learning to harness all aspects. And I think sometimes when we avoid it, and this was me, it's like, you're not willing to walk into the challenging part. We're all these tough people. Well, why are you avoiding the one area you clearly recognize you need to work on? But then bring in, KAATSU foundation training, these different tools that are, as I tell a lot of people, this is low hanging fruit with a massive return. But some people, it's like to ask them to put 10 minutes aside is a challenge.
Yeah. What do you think that is? I mean, I think that at least from my perspective, there's especially active athletes, there's some victimhood that comes out of it, right? And then fear behind it as well. That's what I see as far as why they don't just jump into this stuff right away. And I know you said woo-woo, but it's crazy that we know, and people, you tell someone like, oh yeah, like you have negative thoughts, they can lead to stress, and stress can affect the body in a negative way. We know that for sure, right? The silent killer. We know that stress releases specific hormones, cortisol being the one that everyone knows, that as it is overproduced can cause significant changes to our body in a negative way. And that's an easy concept for people to really understand. But what you just said is, I think for most people, woo-woo, the fact that you can do the opposite, right? And that you very much can control that gene expression to actually produce, whether it be hormones or proteins that can affect things in a more positive way. And that's such a hard thing for people to grasp and understand. Maybe it's not so tangible, maybe we can't measure it, kind of, et cetera, but people fall into this negative loop, whether it's fear, whether it's the unknown, whether it's being a victim of their injury or recovery, is that there is a hesitation for them to just jump into those things that potentially could change right away.
Yeah, I think when I hear all that, I mean, first off, I go for everybody. If that didn't sell you, I mean, come on. Right. And I like right away, my mind's going, I challenge everybody to do Joe Dispenza's morning meditation just based on what you gave. He's got a morning, evening meditation. They're like 22 minutes long. I download them on my phone.
So good.
And they're awesome.
His changing boxes one is really good too, is switching that mindset.
Yeah. See, he's got so many good ones nowadays. And I always stick to the ones that I've got. But, I think Joe talks about is that we when you start having to actively change, like push into these things, that there's a side of us, the identity that we kind of have ingrained is going to fight that change. And I mean, we all have been there where we know something is going to benefit us. We know putting our phone down an hour or two before bed, we know not scrolling is going to give us massive benefit, but it becomes such a challenge to make that happen. So I think it's really almost like you have to, I said this to, who did I talk to yesterday? I was talking to him about, I forget who it was. We were talking about taking on a project. I said, my biggest advice I'm going to give you is write down, like spend 5 minutes and write down why you want to do this project. What does this project mean to you? How will it change your path? Because you might do it for a day or two, but then you might fall off, or you're going to come up with an excuse. But if you go back and you read your whys right away and you keep that fresh, you keep your purpose right in front of you, I think it becomes that much easier. Because I've gone through it, putting the KAATSU bands on. I go so far as I'll have the unit, the bands, everything set out. So in the morning I wake up, I use the bathroom, I hydrate, and I put it on, and then I go going about the day. But if it's not right there in front of me, I found where I know I want to go do it, but just the simple act of having to stop and strap it on, I'm like, why is that? It takes all of 30 seconds, but that's also that idea of, I've heard it talked about on a million podcasts now, where doing the simple things of cleaning your room, doing the simple things that take all of 30 seconds, but we'll find a million other things to do instead of doing the thing we know we need to do that takes less time than all the other crap we're doing.
I love you shared that with me. I loved it. Is the doing the thing, right?
Yeah,
we're too busy doing all the other things instead of actually doing the thing.
Chris
right?
Williams,
Yeah,
that was it.
That was so good.
And I got that from my brother.
Yeah.
And I listen to Chris Williams all the time. His podcast is just, what an awesome guy.
Oh,
and
he's great.
Inspiration. You know, what he's done with his life, and talk about evolving into a completely different person than he was. And he was, I tell people all the time, like, that guy was living a life that in our younger days, we would have killed to be in his position. But it just shows you him taking the time to know what he's truly about, what truly satisfies him and gives him a sense of purpose. And that allowed him to evolve and grow into the person he's become. But that doing the thing, and I'll just put, when I wake up in the morning, I like to put things like that on to listen to. Les Brown's Morning Motivation, put that on to listen to, because it's setting the stage out the gate for how you're planting seeds in your brain. You know, and Les Brown has said it for years now, that it takes nothing to grow weeds, but it takes action and active effort to grow fruit that's going to bear, you know, or whatever's going to bear fruit. So I think about that a lot, and I'm going, okay, figure out what motivates you, figure out what drives you, figure out
what's your North Star.
Exactly. Yeah. What you need to do to make sure you take action, and then figuring out yourself. You know, I had a friend that I used to play the motivational videos at the firehouse, and I thought the guys were going to be so into it, and I'd put it on. I remember one guy's like, "You need this shit?" And walks out of the room. And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't need this." Yeah, you know. And then one day when I left the fire service, I'm, you know, doing these drives around California, and I'm listening to them over and over these different videos. And I remember one day I was training with this Ido Portal group in San Diego, this girl named Summer Black, who's amazing woman. And we're going to train one day. I'm like, "Oh, Summer's going to love this." I put it on. I'm driving. Like, "What do you think, Summer?" And she's, "Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me, but it clearly motivates you. And I can see what it's doing to you. And I love it for that. So listen to it." And that gave me the permission to not feel judgment. And I don't know where that came from, but like, oh yeah, I don't give a shit what everybody else thinks. It motivates me. So I'm going to use this.
Absolutely.
And that's what I try to tell people is figure out what motivates you.
Yeah.
And use it.
Yeah. Figure out what calls you. Right?
Yes.
To continue to push forward and continue to follow whatever that is that's out there in your North Star.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I like that morning. You know, I cold plunge every morning. And that's just, to me, that's my, I don't know, beyond the physical side of it. And there's tons out there. Obviously I'd love to hear your opinion on it too. But to me, more than anything, it's kind of a jumpstart in the morning, and it forces me, kind of, you hear Rogan talk about it. It forces me to do something that I don't want to do every single day. And in doing that, I had to set it up to where there aren't very many barriers of entry to it, right? Because I'm always going to find, in the same way that you put out the KAATSU straps and you get everything kind of set up before, is that I had to make it easy, right? I can't just have this, you know, Yeti cooler in there that I fill up with ice, and it's just too hard, right? It's just way too much. I'm going to find a reason not to. And everyone's asking, "Oh, you're so used to it." I'm not used to it at all. I hate it. Everything. I don't want to get in that thing every single morning, but I get in, and when I'm in and I've already won for the day. I've already won. I've done something hard, and it's the mental side of it for me. And well, yes, I feel great when I get out, but it's more so, okay, I beat whatever that was, that resistance. Joe calls it the inner bitch, right? Every single morning. And that allows me to be able to do the thing throughout the day that my body and my mind is telling me not to do.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I do it.
We're at a time of information where ice baths are in, ice baths are out.
Sauna.
Sauna,
infrared versus, yeah.
And I think I can find a million studies on why doing ice baths are wonderful. I can find a million reasons why it's not great. And I think there's a lot of people out there who want attention. And so they're going to find a way to go against whatever is popular right now.
Yeah.
And I think what you laid out to me, above all of the actual metabolic benefits, is what the gold is in the ice bath. And it is, and I look at the ice bath, no different than I look at a 12-minute foundation workout or doing the zone 2 cardio. That's easy, but it sucks if you don't like doing cardio or the challenging strength workout. It's forcing yourself to show up, making yourself do the thing that you're feeling resistance to do, and that's going to come out in your life and in your day in different ways. And it makes it easy. You've already, like you said, with the ice bath, I mean, the number of times I've walked to the ice bath and sat on the edge to get in, and I'd get to the edge, and I'm just sitting there like, and having that last minute resistance. And I always get envious of my twin, because my twin brother goes, I just go in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, the number of times I climb up and I've even like been hovering over the ice bath, both sides, like just that last moment. But that's it. And like you said, once you're in, you've already won. And so I think it's to me, it's no different than if you say you're going to do something, do it. Because if you don't, then you start to ingrain this habit that will come out in its own way, where you're telling yourself it's okay to quit. You're telling yourself it's okay not to do the thing that is uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, guess what? Most of the things with reward have moments of discomfort. And so I've always thought about that in a workout. If I say I'm doing 5 rounds, then I don't care. Like, I don't care if you're walking through it. I don't care if you have to reduce the weight. I don't care, but do every round, because otherwise you slightly ingrain this concept in the back of your mind that when things get difficult, it's okay to back out.
Bail.
And so setting a stage with things like ice baths, things with a 12-minute foundation workout, anything that makes you show up for yourself and get that done, you're starting the day with a win. And then I'd say the ice bath, like the hardest thing you're going to do that day is already over, and everything else you're cruising. So it's just, I don't know. I like the idea of you can build your own story that you bring into life, and it will have an effect.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Appreciate you breaking that down. I know you asked about the knee specifically, but I really wanted to hear, your origin, and I'd heard it kind of before, know a little bit just through our friendship, of your origin story and how that transitioned to who you are today. And we'll kind of go into more like what you got on the horizon, kind of, et cetera. But yeah, so the knee, you asked a little bit about, what it looks like and how is that manifested based on the injuries and everything. So you had a complete, sounds like, I didn't look at any imaging, but it feels like a complete PCL rupture, which at 90 degrees is the primary constraint to posterior tibial translation. So for the tibia to go backwards onto the tibia to go backwards onto the femur, right? And so in that, what happens is that there's more shear forces, right, that glide across that cartilage. And so it actually requires your meniscus, your cartilage, all the ligaments around your knee, and your supporting musculature to fire and be on a lot more, especially with the activities in the sports that you kind of do, right? And so in that also too, you're stressing the anterior horn of that meniscus, because what happens is that as you go to lock your knee out, the knee is already shifting posterior, right? It's shifted posterior. And so when you go to straighten it out, it pops and it kind of slides really quick anterior. And so when you go to that hyperextension, kind of what you were describing earlier, exactly, it's a lot more impact on that anterior horn of that medial meniscus. And that's what's happened over time, is that you have this small, based on the ultrasound, we looked at it today, you have this small horizontal tear, intrasubstance, meaning in the meniscus. It's not all the way through the actual articular surfaces, which is a good thing. We kind of catch it earlier enough. But what has happened is that repetitive trauma over and over and over again has caused this breakdown in the inside part. And you get an MRI and you have a radiologist read it, they're going to call it like a degenerative tear. Sometimes it is, but in your case, it's not. It's more so from increasing shear forces and an impact in an area that, even though you're strong, is getting more than it typically is designed for. And so our job and my job is to not go in there and operate on it, right? Is to supply it with what it's already trying to load itself with, which is the cells that are responsible for healing it. And we do that at super high concentrations. And so we increase the blood flow to the area in and around the capsule. So inject it in and around the capsule, but also directly into that meniscus, populating it with platelets in there as well as growth factors, get it healed. So, and then we talked a little bit about how you're, moving forward, going to continue to work through, not that you aren't already, but just focusing kind of more on your anterior chain, right? To kind of decrease that posterior glide, but also when it does kind of snap back, for that to be more of a smooth, physiologic, kind of biomechanical transition, as opposed to an impact that we describe more as instability. Even though you don't feel unstable, it's an instability event, and that can take its toll on the knee over time. So that's kind of how your meniscus has come to have that pathology, as far as how I look at it.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that was what I was hoping we were going to get into, because that was, again, like an example of how you and I typically operate is, okay, great. What's going to be my best exercises to kind of make sure I'm on the right path? Because I know what I'm going to do with foundation training. And that's where, like, as we talk about anterior chain, some more squatting, quad. And I love hearing it because I'm going like, yeah, I used to have really good quads because I was always squatting. But what's interesting I've found with my knee over the years, and I want to share it because I think it is something that we can unpack for people, is that when I first tore the PCL, that was a moment, right? And that moment, I was on a skateboard at a skate park and I was pushing myself uphill and I shot up onto the hill and all of a sudden my leg buckled and the knee went numb for a moment. And I don't even remember being like gnarly pain, but I just was, I went to walk away and instability is like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
I was 22. Yeah. I knew something was off. Got the MRI. Okay. And I remember those guys were going, no surgery. Mm-hmm. And at 22, I'm going, hey, I'm super active. I'm cool with surgery. Can we just do surgery? And like, mm-mm. And they gave me some examples of NFL players that don't even have them. I was like, okay, great. Went to physical therapy a couple times. And what they had me doing, I was just, what? I didn't go back.
Right.
And that's when I went and I kind of got with some buddies and started deadlifting, started squatting right. And I remember the first time I was truly deadlifting with somebody that knew what they were doing. That leg was shaking, but I was walking around after and like, wow, that feels better.
Right.
I had no idea. I mean, I'm a young fireman.
You're just listening to your body.
Yeah. And that evolved over the years. Then when I tore that MCL, that opened the door to foundation training. And when Eric put me into my first foundation exercise, and mind you, at this point, I'm lifting heavy. I am at my peak of snatching and clean and jerking and deadlifting and squatting, and not really thinking about internal, external rotation of the hips and freedom outside of heavy loads that I needed to be able to bear for firefighting. But I'm shaking like a leaf doing foundation training. I went, what the heck? And then I walk from that. And this is 2 days after tearing it. And there was noticeable stability. Mm-hmm. And so I was with Eric. I'm like, I'm all in to learn this, because it wasn't even so much what it did for the stability. It was, why am I shaking? Why is this so hard?
Right.
And the new curiosity was born.
And I don't disagree. I mean, like, it's a conversation, right? Like with, let's just say, isolated PCL injuries in your case. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There are high level athletes that get it reconstructed depending on how they feel. And there's some that don't. And it's not so much of, you don't need this fix, goodbye. It's like, okay, let's talk about where you're potentially compromised and how do we enhance, and how can we, yeah. Well, you discovered it on your own. Like you did, but you didn't, right? Like, or you didn't, but you did, but you figured that out. And what happens in kind of getting to the nuances of what you felt was that you get, after post-injury with a fusion, there's an immediate inhibition that occurs in and around muscle. You see it all the time, probably a little swelling, a little fusion in the knee. I think there was some study that they put like 5 cc's on a knee, just a normal healthy knee. They did EMG study. And so they tested the nerve conduction velocity to that specific muscle, whether it be the quad, the hamstring, calf, whatever. And it fired at like 50% of the capacity or something ridiculous like that. So just having a little bit of inhibition from a fusion or swelling or bleeding in that knee shuts off those muscles.
Wow.
And that's why you weren't able to fire. One, and two, it's just like we aren't used to training in and around pathology, right? And so if you can train in and around the pathology that doesn't necessarily cause secondary type issues, a lot of times you can thrive in the setting of these types of things. And that's, like you said, what you've discovered on your own, right? Especially with the isometric type stuff.
For the record, I'm not saying I'm not anti-physical therapy.
Yeah.
I just,
I think sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but please. I think for you're in a very good way, you want to understand, right? Like really understand why we're doing what we're doing and how that's going to help you. And I don't feel like you got that.
No, well, I can look back in my mind on it. I mean, I remember where I was. I can't remember what the therapist looked like, but it was put me on this thing, walks away, and I'm supposed to do these things, and I'm not feeling anything. I'm not being told anything. And I understand in physical therapy, they are so short on the time they have with each person. And in fact, like the number of physical therapists I meet that are going, they want foundation training because they're going, I want to be able to give people things, and I just have such little amounts of time.
They're getting hit harder in my world. They're getting hit harder than any other discipline out there.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And it was one of those things where I didn't feel, I remember being like, this is an absolute waste of my time. I'm going to figure this out. And again, I'm an arrogant young fireman at the time, but I just remember like, F this, I don't know, I'm going to just go work out and see what happens. And I got lucky to be around the right people. But, what my other point though is and I want to hit on with you is like with this one, it's been a gradual kind of like discomfort, right? There wasn't an incident this time where I'm going, oh no, I just did something. And that's really what I think you kind of gave that explanation, but it was really, I've had these people that come to me of why am I in pain? Now, my first question, was there an incident? No, it's just kind of gradually happened over time. And in foundation training, a lot of those people, it's coming to me about their back. And so usually I'm looking to dissect down what are the patterns that you typically feel pain come? Okay, what are the patterns that get you relief from pain? And then we'll start to kind of like identify what FT exercises for them.
Sure.
But what could you give people, Doc, in the idea when they feel like this gradual discomfort's coming and thoughts around that instead of being like, oh, I'm broken, oh no.
Sure. Yeah. No, great question. And goes back to a little bit where, you and I have connected down at these meetings down in Newport, which has been awesome in my world is, as you know, most people who start to feel physical representation, meaning pain of, something else going on, it's usually something that's been there for, especially without an injury that's been going on and on, right? And there's structural and physical and anatomical biomechanical breakdowns that happen, but there's also at the same level cellular breakdown that's happening too, right? And so what happens is that the body shifts to more of a chronic inflammatory process as opposed to that acute inflammatory process that we reignited in you today, right? By putting the cells that are in there at that moment of at any time when you haven't had an injury, right? Platelets, which I consider the first responders, as you know, they come in there and they survey the environment, and then they release growth factors to bring in the cells that are responsible for healing things. But what happens is when someone has been dealing with something for a long time, chronic pathology, that cellular makeup switches, right? And then chronic inflammatory cytokine mediated cells. So certain interleukins that are in there, as well as MMPs, these are all cells that actually are more detrimental. They create inflammation, they decrease blood flow to the area, they cause pain. And so that cycle starts to happen to where instead of the body coming in and healing and recognizing something is injured and bringing the blood flow to it, is actually they do the opposite. They shut it down, they sequester it off. Our bodies were obviously designed to heal within a certain timeline. And if we don't get everything healed to that timeline, it kind of just gives up and then shunts its resources elsewhere, right? As the human bodies, we're designed to keep ourselves alive, right? They're going to focus on the things that keep us alive, our brain, our heart, our lung, our liver, our kidneys, not our knee or hip or joint, right? Yes, that kind of keeps us alive to a degree, but not to the extent of what we're doing today. We're doing so much more than we ever have. And so our body usually heals to 60, 80%, shuts off, shifts it to chronic inflammation and ignores it, no blood supply, and it just sequesters it off. And that has its own set of cells that are in there. And so a lot of times what we want to do is we want to shift that and change it and bring that awareness back to the body. Say, no, this is an acute injury, right? Or we're almost mimicking that, right? By populating it with those cells. And so what I would say is, yeah, someone coming in who's had that chronic stuff for a long time is like, no, this isn't been new. Your body's shifting and it's moving down that pathway. Your job, not is to come in and get injections, but there's a lot that you can do by training it, right? By like bringing that body, getting the blood flow, increasing the blood flow to the area, BFR, we'll talk about that, right? Hyperbaric oxygen chamber, isometric training, right? Like give it more attention than your body has been. And that's what ends up, getting those chronic inflammatory states back on neutral. And then if we have to step in, right, from a cellular standpoint, yeah, we can do that, right?
Yeah.
From multiple levels. And obviously diet, nutrition, all that goes into it as well. So,
And for
does that
people,
answer your question?
it did.
Yeah.
It did. My last one I was going to hit you with,
Yeah.
because I think of the number of people that are always on me of like, what do you think of PRP? Should I do PRP? What about this? What about this? Or you believe in that?
Yeah.
And I tell people, look, I've done it. I was very happy. And when I did it back in 2014, it was the MCL right before I went to Eric. And I remember the doc, there's a whole story behind this guy, but I won't go down it. But him and I were cool. Like we actually had a relationship from prior things. But he goes, look, this is somewhat new. And I said, do I do therapy? Do I chill? And he goes, some people are saying be active. Some people are saying don't be active. I'm going to leave that up to you. He goes, don't go crazy, but it's up to you right now. And I remember I was like, got into the car, I put a TENS unit or whatever it is on my knee. And I was just doing that until I got to California with Eric. But for you, with people that are on the fence about it or not sure if it's the thing for them, what would be your like notes to give them to be open-minded or like know if it's right?
Yeah, no, great question. And yeah, I think if we respect the injury and recovery process at a cellular level, then we'll understand the protocols that go with it, right? The inflammatory phase, which you've heard me talk about, that goes into the proliferation phase, that then goes into the remodeling phase, and understanding that it's not like a cortisone injection where it's going to happen overnight, right? And that's why there is, protocols based on shutting people down. What I typically say is no high impact and no repetitive out of the gate. Let the cells do its thing. Don't add more inflammation or chronic inflammation or injury inflammation on top of the body already doing it. It's doing its thing just by putting in the cells in there. And after that numbing medication wears off today, you're going to probably notice that as well. Yeah, exactly. That's going to kick in. And so what I'd say, for most patients, let's say PRP in general, if it's an isolated injury, we aren't injecting these, we aren't putting these in an IV and systemically going to the area. That's more kind of the stem cell world. But PRP is, if something's been there, whether acute or chronic, it can jumpstart, depending on the cells you put in there, every phase of that recovery, that inflammation, proliferation, and remodeling phase. Sometimes post-injury, like let's say Billy, an example with MCL, wants to come in right away. He wants to, he wants to do everything. And he wants to ramp up his healing. He wants to magnify the healing. He came in even, I think, 2, 3, 4 weeks afterwards, and he wants to extend that proliferation phase. He wants to extend that inflammatory phase, meaning get this thing healing like superhuman, like right away, like getting more cells in there than his body can, just knowing that the blood supply is kind of poor. Some, it's chronic, where things like I described before, it's shut off and it just kind of gets stuck on third base, that healing. And so how do we get that across plate, the home plate, right? How do we push that a little bit further? And that's where a different preparation, but that's where PRP can help also, is get it pushed a little bit further. But I think more important than anything isn't to say that people should be critical with who's injecting, but asking those questions, right? Being understanding, okay, do we have an idea of what this is going to do, and try to understand it for themselves at not the deepest cellular levels, but not just get it and say, hey, everything's going to be good. It's a commitment to the process. It's a commitment to understanding why you're getting what you're getting, what is the protocol that comes with it, and what are the goals with it at the end of because, someone who has a complete rupture, an ACL, or a rotator cuff that's torn and retracted, who wants to get a PRP injection, I'm very clear out of the gate with them. Like, listen, this is not going to get that tendon back down to the bone. But if you're having discomfort and pain based on that, we can help with that to a degree, right? But we're not going to get this tendon all the way back down to the bone. And same thing with arthritis and chronic tendinopathies, kind of, et cetera, is that having a really deep conversation about what are the expectations and what are we actually doing at a cellular level. And I think that's not only for me and my patients, it's empowering for them to understand that, because it helps with the healing, like I described before.
So my one other caveat question I'll hit you with it is come up a lot, and I've got my personal opinion on it, but we have a natural inflammation process that we want to happen, right? Absolutely. For healing.
Yeah.
So what do you say when people talk about ice baths, all that jazz post in that process?
Yeah. I like patients to avoid anti-inflammatory modalities post-injury for at least 2 weeks, for that exact reason, right? And typically you see that pulsatile inflammatory phase, and then it starts to drop at about 2 weeks. And that's where a lot of times I am injecting post-injury, is waiting for that about 2 weeks and then ramping that back up. And so I don't do, depending on, sometimes with surgery, obviously it's a whole different story, right? Because we can get into this as we want to calm the nervous system down, and getting into the mindset of recovery is a whole nother thing. And if someone's in so much pain where they're just redlining, they're not healing. You know what I mean? If they're not sleeping and they're like, we got to get ice on them, we got to get them to kind of calm down. But let's say post-injury, you tear your MCL. I'm not a huge fan of just throwing ice on it right away. I think let the body come in and do, and I'm not completely against it, but I definitely, if you know what's happening at a cellular level, I think you'd be more supportive of that inflammatory process happening right away. We've gotten a lot more aggressive with keeping the joint moving, right? Range of motion, as long as it's not compromising the ligaments or whatever is injuring, just because, as you know, the joints want to move, get blood flow to the area, et cetera. But where I am targeted and specific with the biologics is in and around those timelines. And so I do want that inflammatory cascade to occur. I want that blood flow in there. I want the platelets to be releasing growth factors. I want them to not feel the pain, but I want them to feel that healing that's going on. So.
Yeah. I think it's because you and I had that conversation, divine timing, when you were on Oahu with Billy, and I had hit the reef and my shoulder, I think I had chipped some bone.
Oh yeah, your AC.
Yeah, minor stuff. But I was doing because people ask me, I was very, very like open right away on my social media.
Yeah.
But just KAATSU and red light on there right away.
Mm.
And my mode, because everyone asks me, well, what about ice? Why aren't you icing? And I'm like, no, I'm trying to get as much circulation in that area, oxygen-rich blood to the area. But I look at the inflammation of an injury very much like training, where if I did heavy lifting, I'm not getting in ice for at least 5 hours. And I mean, not to say I'll like get in and get out, but I'm not spending more than maybe 30 seconds in there because I don't want to get in the way of the natural inflammation and trauma
And
that we
hypertrophy.
want.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing too is cycling. A lot of people talk about like, sauna, cold plunge, and that's a little bit different. I think that's later on because the pulsatile vasoconstriction, vasodilation actually does a net, increase blood flow to the area. It's a net positive as far as getting blood flow. So I can see that being part of a routine, right? Which is that contrast therapy, that cycling. And I agree. I mean, Huberman's talked about that a lot, right? As far as post workout and the hypertrophy, how it actually decreases hypertrophy afterwards. So depending on what the gains that you're going for with regards to that. But yeah, I'm a huge fan post injuries doing whatever you can to increase blood flow and oxygen to that area. And so that's exactly what you were doing.
Yeah. I think maybe from this we can do something for your viewers and kind of go like, hey, these are the tools.
Yeah.
These are some tools we like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get Doc Goodman and you guys together and brainstorm it.
I would love that, man. My interactions have been nothing but, amazing and wonderful. And would love to pick his brain and get deep down into that guru's head.
Watch out. He'll go deep with you.
Oh, I love it. But on that, the KAATSU straps, tell me like what your intro to blood flow restriction, where did that come into play?
Yeah. So, and if you call KAATSU blood flow restriction, they'll be like, it's not blood flow, it's KAATSU.
It's KAATSU. Yeah.
So I was in lockdown I was working with Madonna, and there was a gentleman there named Josh Holland, who's a biohacker. And Josh, we since became good friends and keep in touch from afar. But he had KAATSU, he had ozone, he had red light, he had all the tools, methylene blue. He was my guy that opened me up to it. Mm-hmm. But I was still, this is 2020, 2019 into 2020. And so we're in lockdown now, and him and I are together. And one day he's breaking out KAATSU, and he'd already done ozone with me. And oh yeah, that's right. And he's like, I got to put you on to KAATSU. Yeah. And he put me in some methylene blue, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Let me show you KAATSU. I'm like, come on, man. I swing kettlebells, I move barbells. I'm not interested in gadgets.
Right.
And then one day he put me through a workout, and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so, all right. I started playing with it more and more. And then that led me down the rabbit hole of let's see what research I can find on this stuff. And then I found Mercola had done a bunch of articles about KAATSU in the chronic pain space. And that's where it started opening me up of, this isn't just a tool that's going to elicit a super intense training response in a very short amount of time, but there's a ton of research on this in injury recovery and healing. And so I started going down the rabbit hole and found a ton of information on blood flow restriction. But what stood out to me with KAATSU was their cycling mode, which they have as like a patented thing, but 25 years of research in Japan using KAATSU in hospital settings, not just in training. This is crazy. So I started exploring it. I started training with it, and I think I did 3 or 4 weeks of just KAATSU every day with foundation training, some push-ups and some squats, and then run into a friend. He's like, bro, what are you doing? You look huge. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then one day I go to Peter Park's gym. He's got all these baseball players in there, and we're all talking, and Peter and I are talking about one arm, one leg push-up, and these athletes are training. They're like, oh, you can do one? Let's see it. Like, oh shit, I haven't done one in like a year. I hope I can do this. And I rack out 5. And I'm like, oh shit. And so I like stepping back, I'm like, that's because of KAATSU. Well, I'm learning how to recruit more and more muscle. I'm training in this sense of we're building up lactic acid. We're fatiguing muscle at the same time because we're kind of we're like, we'll say, not an oxygen-rich environment. So you're getting a lot of type 1, type 2 fibers working together.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, the training response of strength is there. When I look at it from the injury standpoint, it just started making sense. I started doing my foundation training with that all the time. I started feeling a difference in circulation benefits. And going to Japan, KAATSU team, I started kind of getting more involved with them. this last year, and they were going to Japan. They said, hey, do you want to come do a thing with Dr. Sato, the guy that created it? That to me is like, oh my God, I can go learn from the guy behind all this. So I went to Japan, and that was a 2-day deep dive into all the different organizations they're affiliated with, all the science, all the research. And I came back just going to every loved one, every friend, you got to get on this. And again, I'm like, this isn't me trying to sell you. I'm telling you because I believe in what this does. And to me, it's undeniable and it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. What does it do? I mean, so traditional, and I apologize that I'm putting KAATSU and blood flow restriction in the same thing.
I tell it jokingly because that's them.
No, their team's awesome. Thank you for connecting with them. They've been nothing but wonderful. And just, I've tasked myself to continue to learn and grow. And obviously BFR has been a huge part of, especially ACL recovery. And there's a lot of research, amazing research, out there on that. But I think most people think it's just building muscle, right? Most people think you put it around your arms, you put it on your legs, and you're going to work on getting hypertrophy. You're creating an anoxic environment, right? That then cycles and opens up and gets more oxygen to the area, right? That's, at least based on conversations that I've had with patients, that's kind of what they're, but you're talking about brain, you're talking about blood flow throughout the entire body. Can you go a little bit more? Because, why do you want everyone on it? Okay.
Yeah. So what I took from Japan, I'm going to do my best to give this from what I absorbed.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. The fact that you can put it on at the start of the day and the end of the day, the fact that anybody can do it at home on their own, it's user-friendly, it's safe. The bands are hand designed, hand sewn, so that you're not restricting the blood flow in, you're restricting the blood flow out. Okay. So we get this pooling of blood in the extremities, and that causes an engorgement of capillaries.
Okay.
And what they're showing is that because there's only so much blood in the body, and we start engorging capillaries with blood, there's this kind of almost like an enhancement of circulation and oxygen. Like everything starts kind of like compensating for why aren't we getting the blood flow returned back like we should?
Angiogenesis, more blood flow, more blood vessels coming in. Yeah.
And they showed, and they've been doing research in Japan on this, where they start developing new capillaries in the brain. And so then you're getting this buildup of lactic acid if you're doing any kind of activities, that gets that hormonal cascade response like training, right? So now we're getting the body to elicit growth hormone, elicit testosterone, brain-derived neurotropic factor, I think, BDNF, insulin growth factor. So we're getting all of these hormones that we typically have to go into a super intense grind to elicit without doing the super intense grind that now we have to spend days recovering from. Right. So we're able
acid
to
baths.
Exactly. So we're not getting all of this acid bath effect. We're not getting this metabolic waste effect. So there's maybe the first couple of times where there's not really a DOMS, a delayed onset muscle soreness afterwards.
Oh, there definitely is for me.
Well,
I got it.
If you do it, if you start being consistent with it, that's typically in my experience, stops happening.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I say it's a rinse and repeat. You're able to wake up and do the exact same thing again. And for me, that's what I've seen, where we're able to elicit all of that hormonal cascade again and again and again. And that's why I wear it before coming on to talk, is I took that from Dr. Mercola. Dr. Mercola is saying how he wears it 20 minutes before he goes on stage to lecture, because the brain effect, that circulation effect, that BDNF effect, and I feel cognitively on, I feel a shift. If I put it on in the morning, there's a reason I do that, is because very quickly my brain feels on, my body feels on, I naturally just start wanting to do more activity. And so knowing the circulation effect that's happening now, this enhanced circulation, this enhanced oxygenation, this capillary effect, to me, that's something that as we get older, we want to be kind of promoting. And I've already had one friend on Oahu, an older gentleman that started using it, messaged me going, hey, I got off blood pressure medication because of this. And when we look at the elastic effect of the cycle mode that this is stimulating, where we engorge the limb with blood and then it releases. The bands release, and then the blood gets to relax for a minute. And then we engorge again, and then it releases. what they're showing is that we're exercising the vascularity itself, is so that we're not becoming this rigid piping system anymore, that we're back to being nice and elastic, and that things like this gentleman getting off blood pressure medication becomes normal. It's not uncommon. They've also, I want to say they're doing something with a Native American tribe that has been very proactive, KAATSU, where they want to start looking at how it's affecting diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that it's so effective on how it affects with insulin, all that stuff, again, that it starts to get over my head. But there's just so many side effects that they discussed in Japan and how they've used it over there in the hospital settings. I called my dad, like, hey, you're using it, use it every day. I don't care if you're training. I want you to get up and put it on. I showed up the last time to visit my dad, and he's laying a cement slab at 78 years old with his KAATSU on. And that's what I think is so amazing, is that you can do it, morning, put the arms on cycle mode 30 minutes, put the legs on 30 minutes,
Easy.
Evening, 30 minutes. And there's older people in their network that are using it multiple times a day for all of these benefits. And I go back to, again, like foundation training. I tell them the two things that have been the most game changing in my life was foundation training and KAATSU. And then I would say free diving would be my third, breath work.
Yeah, McKenzie stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but before I even knew, I only knew Brian as the runner. I got into free diving, and I saw a shift in my focus and my ability to sit and read a book as a young fireman again. And that opened me up. And then I found Wim Hof. And then, I discovered Brian McKenzie, what I was doing with Laird, and then listening to Brian speak. I'm like, this is the guy that I've been looking for to help the fireman digest, the normal person digest, because there's so many million things out there.
But someone who can break down what you were feeling too.
Yeah.
Like, he does such a good job. It was so awesome to hear him talk.
Well, and he's put it into a system now where it's like his gears, how to use it for training, how to use it for life. I mean, Brian has taken what everyone's doing and helped develop it into a very usable system. And man, I just recommend his.
I love what he has to say.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to hear him speak more.
Yeah. He's a motivating speaker. So, did that kind of help?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I could say, from my perspective, traditionally, I was like, oh, this is helping, especially at the geriatric and the aging population with muscle sarcopenia, right? Like age-related muscle atrophy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more there. And that's what I wanted my audience and I wanted our listeners to hear that, because it's doable, right? Like what you just said, it's doable to be able to do a little bit, 20 minutes, whatever, 10, 15 minutes in the morning, 10, 15 minutes in the afternoon, and you can make significant physical changes and emotional changes too as well.
Huge. Well, they're doing stuff now. They partnered with, I want to say it's called Lumina, but it's like something that's tracking brain stuff. And they were doing a thing in Japan where they're putting people in an MRI after KAATSU, looking at the brain. Now they're able to do this. They're just tracking with them and with Oura Ring. I guess they partnered with Oura Ring, but they're showing very big impacts on things like Alzheimer's, PTSD, these different components that I actually told Steve, I'm like, hey, I want to do another chat with you just on trying to better like break down what you guys are finding and what you guys are showing. But I know there's a gentleman that is like apparently one of the researchers in the Alzheimer's space that just put out a book, and he has KAATSU in there. And they didn't even know that he was putting KAATSU in his book, but he's talking about its effect for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And Barrett's been awesome, connecting with him. And then I got a chance, Chris Morgan was in town, and he's their chief performance officer. And I think I want to say his mom lives here. And so he stopped by the office and we got to wrap for about an hour on it as well. And it's just all these like light bulbs are coming on as far as like, God, what can I do to get every single patient of mine, on this? Like I would just, because he's like, what are your goals? And I'm like, to optimize the hell out of people. Like ultimately my goal is to, yes, in my world, it's injury and recovery, but how do I get the best recovery possible? And how do I transition that person? Because that's where I'm typically going to be seeing people, to be able to not have to deal with this ever again. And in their community, how can the community learn from that person's injury? And that's when we're like, okay, we got to figure out how to get KAATSU on every single person, every single patient of mine.
Yeah. I look at it and I go, it's just, whether you're trying to be stronger, you're trying to be more resilient, you're trying to optimize the internal systems, it's a no-brainer. It's expensive. I tell everybody, look, it's expensive, but you're either paying on the front end or you're paying extensively on the back end.
That's a tough concept for people.
I know, man. But I look at it and go, look at all the areas you'll waste money.
Right.
You know, put into it. No, I'm not going to tell you. No, I bought the bullshit $20 tourniquet bands. I used them once. I threw them away.
Everyone's trying to hack it.
Everyone's trying to hack it. There's other blood flow restriction units that are $600. And guess what? You're going to use them a handful of times and they're going to sit and collect dust because they're very one-dimensional in my opinion. And I'll argue that with anybody. Where this is put it on, it's cycling. These things are designed to be almost impossible to create the issues that everyone brings up that are concerned. Yes, there's a handful of people out there that this is not intended for you. I'm not going to get into that. They have it all over their website. But in a longevity, performance training, and honestly, like super hack for athletes, this is a worthy investment. This is your home gym anywhere you go in the world. And you can get away with dumbbells and bands at the lightest levels and have huge impacts.
I saw it firsthand with Cade, man, because post-operatively, we were kind of at a standstill, a little bit of stalled out, right? ACL. And when you threw those things on him, got him start doing some isometric work and then eventually getting into load with it, not only just physically, but just it turned him on a little bit to it as well, right? And got him kind of, instead of a passive passenger in the recovery process, got him more active and engaged in the process too as well. Is that what you saw? So.
Yeah, I think, 22, highest level there is. The idea of passive is very, very difficult at times. And I think when injuries are uncommon, they are 100 times scarier for people, and so him being able to put KAATSU on and do our basic foundation stuff, his feedback right away was, this has made more difference than any of the other therapy, any of the other stuff I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then we did do all the other stuff that he had on his list of standard physical therapy. He's like, oh, these feel so good now. And it was, for me, I just went like, everybody needs to be making this a part of rehab, because it is a, you talk to the guys at KAATSU, and in Japan, it's like right out of surgery, they're getting onto this stuff. They typically say 3 days post-op. But with Cade, it was, 3 to 5 days. We were on Zoom and KAATSU and doing basic FT on the ground, but just the impact of him being on, the active engagement of the foundation exercise into the isometrics gave him a sense of stability and safety as he then went into the passive movements, where he didn't have, oh, I feel this, oh, this. And he was just going, dude, those are the only things that have made me feel physically better in the moment.
Right.
And
which is huge.
Yeah. And he's just vomiting to me as we're,
right.
That's that the back and forth with people in the moment, and they're being very raw with you. And so I was like, brother, that's like, we need to share this with people. Absolutely. You need to be able to share what you're experiencing. Yeah. I think it was similar with Billy after you guys did the MCL with throwing the KAATSU on him, doing FT. It's a very easy way to be super active in the healing process and safe.
Did you know Billy after his Morocco injury? Have you guys connected?
Yeah, because KAATSU.
Yeah,
KAATSU.
God, I wish we had KAATSU for that. I don't think he did. Maybe a little bit.
I don't think it was in. I think I'd just given. So the way it came into the circle was, I had, after Oahu, I bought a bunch of bands and went to my close friends like, I bought you this because I trust you. Tell me what you think of it in your training. And KAATSU is the first guy to go, like, he's the most open-minded to new ideas, new concepts. And you see it with him and Billy all the time. They're always changing their recipe.
Absolutely.
And throwing away what's wasted and really applying what gets results.
Yeah. And so, trying so much so they're able to get to the bottom of what actually is working.
Yeah, so, yeah. And they're every time they surf, they're in the field testing.
Yeah.
They're testing. And so
he came down really, the reason I bring it up is because he came down so hard on that slab on his quad. And so he landed on his quad. So not only did, obviously the big injuries that everyone saw, right, was pelvis and his ACL, MCL, meniscus, but the one that really caused things to, I wouldn't say delayed, but just he struggled with early on was a quad contusion and tearing through the quad because he landed on it. And that, as you know, when you're trying to recover from a knee injury, you got to have that. You got to get that back. And so we weren't able to do much of anything at all as far as moving the knee because the quad was so messed. And so having KAATSU straps on that thigh early on would have been a game changer for him, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking with Cade, where everyone was so concerned about him getting the quad to start firing, and he was giving me that, like, having these on, and it's something to do with that lack of oxygen in there, that type 1, type 2 having to work together, the hyper flooding of blood. Like, maybe Dr. Sato or Steve with KAATSU could really unpack that for us. But there's so many things that are happening when you tie those things in.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing it all the time, right? You mentioned, I wanted to kind of switch gears because you were mentioning the emotional side of things, and you mentioned earlier, and I kind of shut you off and wanted you to talk a little bit about that because you see it a lot, I see it a lot, right? It are those kind of the deeper, more emotional releases and connections that you're making with patients, and I talk a lot with my practitioners, whether it be my physical therapists, my craniosacral therapists, chiropractors, body workers, right? There has to be some level of being present enough to feel it, right? Being open to and engaging with it and having the energy to allow it without absorbing it, right? And you'd mentioned a little bit earlier, I cut you off and you were like, yeah, you just have to protect yourself a little bit. Tell me a little bit more of that. So.
Well, and I'm going to start by saying I started that conversation with, if you had brought this up with me when I was fresh out of the fire service, again, I would have been like, get out of here with this hippy dippy mumbo jumbo. But, what I've come to find over the years is that a lot of us in the realm of helping and healing, we're empaths, and there's a part of giving of yourself when you're helping people. And when you're truly on that journey and you're going moment to moment, you can take on other people's stuff, and you become so invested in it that I went through it where I used to think I was crazy, because I was like, one day I woke up and I had the symptoms of a woman that I had helped, and she had sciatica. I'd never had sciatica in my life, and then I remember a couple of days went by, and all of a sudden I had this like incident that was very stressful for me. And I woke up the next day and I had this god awful sciatic sensation. I'm going, oh my God, I took on her things, and I couldn't figure it out. And it was able to get rid of the sciatica, but then I was very much in that mode of like, why? And then I've had a few other times where I've helped people, and then next thing you know, there's like a stressful moment, and then I'm experiencing their symptoms. And Paul Chek actually talked about it, is that you need to have these rituals in place that you kind of close yourself off and guard yourself from taking on other people's shit.
Right.
Because as they're getting rid of it, they're sloughing these things off. And, I think it's this energetic back and forth, and people don't like to get into this stuff, but like, we are energy, and we are absorbing energy, and we're giving energy. And if you're not careful and you're so invested in helping other people, and you're open and excited, and then next thing you know, you're taking on their things without ever realizing it. You're taking on their problems.
100%.
And so I think it's very important to have, rituals that you keep in place, and then your forms of getting it out. And I know for me, whenever I get back to Oahu after a lot of travel and helping and doing, I like to go and see my body worker and just get very, very intense body work. And I mean, it's stuff that it is not enjoyable. It's extremely, extremely painful. And yes, I have the therapists that are going like, that's not good. You want it to be gentle. You want your nervous system to be calmed down. And I have tried all the different ones, but whenever I go through, it's almost like I go through it, and it's kind of like the ice bath. I have to, there's a sense of one, like I've gone through this thing, and maybe it's just a symbolic representation of release for me. Or maybe he's truly wringing out the tissue, right? I don't know if it's Ada Rolf or who said it, but the issue's in the tissue. And whenever I get that done, it's typically feeling like a complete mental and physical reset and flushing.
Absolutely.
So that's become my ritual. A million
it.
people are going to be saying, well, that's dumb.
No,
This is why.
not at all. I mean,
that's what works for me.
I bring it up on purpose, because I think we all have our version of that, right? For me, before I recognized it too, same thing. Like I go all in and I'm receptive and the energy exchange happens. And for me, it was depression. I don't know, I want to put that word, but feeling down, feeling low energy, not knowing what it was, recognizing, oh my God, I'm absorbing all of this. And this is through work with my hypnotherapist and my craniosacral therapist, right? Really helping me identify it and putting together, like you said, a program or rituals to kind of work with it, right? And recognizing, okay, that's not mine, but creating almost like they tell me, create like a golden halo around you, right? To recognize that, yes, I'm here, I hear you, I recognize you, I feel your energy, but at the same time, that's not my energy, right? And blocking it out. And I think oftentimes I do have to do the physical, right? I have to go out, whether it's a sauna, kind of the cold plunge, or, you know, like you said, deep tissue type work, it does release for sure, all of that. So I feel, I mean, not as intentional as you are with it, but I notice when I do, and I know I need that. And that's exactly why I need that, because it's hard to be as engaging as we are as practitioners, as healers, as, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, empath, right? Without actually taking it in, right? Because you have to, if you aren't who you are and you aren't getting the results that you are, it's the same way I am if I'm not. And so how do I work around that?
Yeah. And I think you know, when I look back at the fireman side of me, that's where a lot of the original attitude came from, is like, no, I've dealt with real trauma.
Yeah.
I've seen these, you know, horrific things that no one should have to really deal with, but that's what that job entails. And so I never felt like I was carrying from that. But when I look back, because I've had a lot of friends from the fire service go, how did you always stay positive? How were you always just like unaffected? And I didn't ever have a good answer, but as I've read some books from Stephen Kotler and listened to these different experts, I think I was just lucky to be a guy who got in the fire service going, oh, cool, every third day off, every 2 days off, I can go surfing. And oh, hey, I can go travel and I can go surf. And 3-4 times a year going for 2-week surf trips and sneaking away was giving me these resets without ever realizing it. You know, not having a cell phone, being in nature, being with friends, connecting with my world and my environment. And then typically I was always so excited for a surf trip, but by the end of 2 weeks, I'm like missing the sirens, missing being on the truck, missing my crew, ready to go back. And it's like, okay, here we go. And so I think that it was a blessing and just kind of like a unrealized reset that I was always giving myself. And I just listened to this gentleman on Huberman Lab podcast talking about going out into nature and going and hiking, getting away from your phone. That. And that was like, oh, he's putting it all together.
Right.
He's written a couple of books. I can't remember his name.
No,
but
I know. I heard it. I'm not through it yet, but he's able to highlight the things that we're feeling without, you know what I mean, us knowing exactly why we were feeling that way.
It's like, oh, that's it. That makes, and that's an intelligent way to put it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's way better than I'm doing.
So you talked a little bit earlier about your North Star and your purpose and your why. And we were grabbing coffee this morning. You were talking about finding your purpose. What is that for you?
Good question. Finding purpose. Because I
feel like from an outsider, and I mean, obviously know you well, if you're partially, if not completely living it too, right? Like I feel like you're in that jet stream. You're excited about what you're doing. You're making change. You're making impact.
I think it'll help me elaborate just by going off of a statement I told you earlier. I can only surf so much in a day, but it doesn't, that satisfies one thing. But if I'm not driving towards my purpose, if I'm not working on things where I feel like I'm working towards whatever it is I'm intended to do here, I can feel very unsatisfied. You know, and to me, like a good day is, you know, I get a surf in, maybe a couple, I get a good workout in, I physically use my body, I physically put it out, but then I am taking steps towards something that is bigger than me. And I feel like so often, if we don't have that thing we're working towards, we don't have that you know, we don't have that, you know, fight. It's like, you know, the warrior without a battle, right? Like what am I here for? And so to me, it's really, again, taking the time and recognizing it. But I feel like being able to get get this foundation training out there,
Yeah.
to be able to get people to recognize what is available for healing, for dealing with the aspects of life. I don't know, like for me, it's just become such a driving force. And sometimes it isn't, sometimes it's very unhealthy. Sometimes there is the moments where I'm going, I need to go home. I need to go, getting time with your tribe, because it'll be lonely.
Yeah. Should everyone be doing FT?
Yeah, I would say, I'll be biased. I'd say 99% of all people need to be doing FT. Some people, it doesn't work for them. And I'll say that after years with Doc Goodman, that there is some people that it's not for them. But I look at it like I always made the analogy with Eric, that it is a grenade that if I roll it into the room, I'm going to get 90% of people out of pain. And then that other 10%, we're going to need something else. And then, that's where I look at it, is get the practitioner, get it with the other people, and hopefully they have someone good in their tribe and in their team. And in that team, everyone is collectively working together for the purpose. But I believe most people should be doing FT. It is like KAATSU to me, is that it's addressing so many components, from chronic pain to improving your posture, improving circulation, digestion, breathing, mental clarity, confidence. It's just a game changer in engaging your body and turning up the volume on this vessel we're all traveling around in. And, I hear it time and again, sometimes that your body's only way to communicate that things are off is through pain. And so we get these pain signals and then we try to numb it and mask it, rather than going, okay, why am I feeling these things? And starting to engage and listen. And I found through FT that it's become this door for me of really engaging into my body and learning to feel all these different sensations. And in practice, in the beginning, it was overwhelming of all these things to think about, all these different sensations and activations. And then all these systems start working together. And I encourage everybody on embracing it as a practice, as a daily ritual. I think of it, whether it's your daily yoga or for the martial arts out there, it's your daily kata that we do, and we engage the body and we set, and we are actively outdoors and in our environment and using this beautiful gift that we have while we have it.
And you're the person to share it. I mean, more than anyone out there.
I'm one. We're training a tribe. Not even a tribe. Eric would kill me if I said
know.
We're training a community of people who genuinely care and want to help and want to make impacts on other people's lives. And the number of people that I feel want to have a purpose in life, that they're looking for the purpose, and they are exploring the idea of helping others. I'm going, this is such an enriching process. And then the ability to integrate with other communities, and then to learn other modalities, to bring together the way Tim Brown and the guy and John have created SPRT and all of that. Like, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
And changing this concept of the world where we seem to be in now, where it's all about me. It's me. It's me. Everyone needs to see me. No, it's us collectively. And we work together and we come together. Life is better. It's so much more fun to work with you and to work with the community and the team than just to be alone and like, hey, look at how great, look what I did.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
That's so shallow in my opinion, where it's like, if we're all working together and the individual's winning, then we're all winning, and like elevate, don't just pull yourself up, elevate everybody in that process. I see it all the time where people learn from people and then they want to just go, look what I figured out. Like, hey, asshole, where's all the people that you studied under? That's what kills me is like, it used to be about honor your mentors, honor your senseis. And that might seem esoteric to some people, but I was just raised in that mindset of like, you point to the people that made you who you are and you acknowledge what you've done, but be humble and look to the people that have guided you to the education and to the things you figured out. You know, I feel like sometimes social media is just making people so much. If I do that, then I'm not, everyone's going to look elsewhere than me. And I find like, no, they respect you more. So
that's such a scarcity mentality too, isn't it? Yeah.
Josh Holland was the best. And I keep bringing him up. My friend Josh Holland is the epitome of what it means to embody just that, the opposite. What is it? Abundance mindset. That guy was always about elevating everybody around him, bringing everyone together, sharing communities, and you just see it in him. And he just thrives with everybody. And so like, we need more Josh Hollands walking around.
What is it? A lift as you rise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And that's why I brought it up. And I know Dr. Goodman and the entire FT kind of community. And I say, you're the one to share is because you're living it, man. You truly are. Not just in the changes that you've made within yourself through FT, but the way that you've spread the word in the community and the amount of lives that you've been able to change through that in a very collaborative approach, which is why I think you and I clicked right away, is because I'm constantly looking for different ways that I can improve not only what I'm doing, because it's not so much about me, but more so that person's outcome or that person's livelihood. And I want to go a little bit back to what you said earlier, is that when we're constantly thinking about that stuff, it can be lonely, right?
Oh,
it can. Yeah, it's like
I had I'm like, oh,
yeah,
hold on.
No, I'm thank you for sharing and being vulnerable in that, because I feel that too, right? And wherever that home is, wherever that tribe is, for sure, I know we have to go back to every once in a while to really get reconnected with our bigger purpose. And that's exactly, I'm glad you struck that, because I feel that often, right? And through these types of conversations and connecting with people like that, like you, who have the collaborative and not the competitive mindset, which is the whole purpose of me wanting to do this, right? And have this content. It makes me feel like we're making true difference and we're doing it all together in a very positive way, and not this competitive me society where it's all about us, and not about how do we raise the frequency, as Dylan and I always say, or how do we improve the entire community. And so thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable with that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we just did it, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, working with Cade, there came a point where we talked about it. It's like, hey, we need to get him to Drew. You know, like for Cade to make his next steps, the right move is to go, hey, it's time to go and work with this guy. Yeah. And I had the same thing with Madonna. When she had her hip surgery, she wanted me to stay. And like, no, I'm not the right person for this.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very important that it's not a you're not good enough thing. It's not I need to hold on to this client. It's going, when it's the right time, they need to go and do the other modalities. They need to go work with the right therapist for what's going on. When your mind is in that of collective and the goal is that person is truly getting the benefit, then it's not a stab to you.
Not at all.
Like I share that because I see it a fair amount where people are afraid to lose a client.
Yeah.
Instead of like, on Oahu, we've got a great network on the North Shore where we've got Jenna, the acupuncturist. We've got, Brandon, who's a chiropractor and does foundation training. And we've got another couple, John and his wife, who are doing chiropractics just down the way. And then we have Myron, who's a body worker. And then we have Artie, who's a body worker. And there's a handful of others. And everybody's just kind of collectively working together now and looking in that like, hey, if I did what I did, does it resonate? Try this. And that to me is what becomes a beautiful thing, where the collective, like if we have any new people that move to the North Shore, whenever I have a class, I'm like, hey, come tell everybody what you do, introduce yourself. And if people like you and you're good, they're going to keep coming to you. But I don't ever want to gatekeep and not like let people know what's available.
Right. Absolutely. And then ultimately it's a connection thing, right? It's an energy thing. And if it doesn't necessarily work for you and that client or that patient, then it's not about you and it's not about them and it's not about ego. It's about whatever works best for them to get what they're looking for, right? And here's what I can do, and if it works great for you, awesome. If not, awesome. Let's talk about who else could, help and step in and be part of whatever your goals are.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset is really missing, especially, I know in your world, but also in mine, like way too much. It's all about being the guy,
It's an interesting phenomena.
Yeah. It was really cool to hear you and Peter riff down at the surf masterclass. Peter Park, obviously. I know you guys go way back, and he's kind of was there at the beginning days as a foundation training too. So, you want a little sneak peek into what you guys are working on at all? And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I had this rare opportunity, as you know, to go on stage and interview Peter. And he was like, hey, do you want to do something random?
Yeah.
And for anybody that don't know, Peter Park, I would say, is probably top 5, maybe top 3 best trainers in the world that nobody knows about. Doesn't really do social media, is word of mouth. And he's trained some of the biggest names from Lance Armstrong, Kelly Slater, Lakey Peterson, to now Oprah Winfrey, Prince Harry, Chase Sexton in motocross, NBL. You get the idea. He's as elite as they come, and results are what he produces. And I've met him because of Doc Goodman. He did the first book with Eric. And I've always thought Peter liked me because, Eric brought me around, and he entertained me being around. And then at the recent SPRT event, he was grabbed me and said, hey, do you want to come on stage and interview me? And I was like, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah,
I'm just going to give a lecture, but that's going to be boring. You always have great questions. Why don't you come up and do podcast style? Yeah. So, okay. So we do the thing, and it was super fun. And then
it was awesome.
Oh,
it was so good. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing was you, you and probably like 4 or 5 other people came over and said, you two need to do a podcast together.
Yeah.
You guys are so good together.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter actually cornered me and was like, hey, we're doing this. Call him the next day. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. And so we started talking about how we're going to make this come to life. And, for me, I just went, if I have the opportunity to, it'll be cool to interview some of his people. Like, he's got some insane community and network. But if I have the opportunity to sit and just be mentored, and that's how I look at it, as doing a podcasting with him is my ability to be mentored and learn from his 40 plus years of training. That's any strength and conditioning course I could ever take. And the ability to be a vessel for other people to get the information, to be able to ask the right questions. That to me is, again, like when I think of excitement, it's like leaving the fire service. All I know is this is the right move. And so Peter and I have been kind of slow rolling, getting it started. It's not going to be coming to life anytime soon because we're both perfectionists and he's got an insane schedule. But we are on the early phases of doing a podcast. And, we did do our first couple, just him and I bantering on the topics. And one was training Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
And the evolution, because I got to see her in the gym and I'm like, I can't believe she's so fit, so healthy, so vibrant. And then he started telling me, where she was when they started. And I went, bro, I would love to do an interview about this one day. He goes, let's do it. And so we unpacked it and I'm like, this is insane, but it's such a beautiful thing forget Oprah. It's cool that it's Oprah, but it's a beautiful, empowering story for every human in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s on what you can actually accomplish if you do it right. Yeah. And I worked really hard to unpack that process.
Yeah, I love that. It's going to be so good.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And you're doing exactly in your niche world. What I'm trying to do here is that through social media, online, YouTube, we see the highlight reels, right? We see, and I think more and more people are becoming vulnerable in their journeys, right? But don't necessarily have a platform to really deep dive into what actually happened to create that outcome or that change, right? And part of it, of course, for me is talking to the athletes and the providers that are in the weeds of what's actually happening. And the other is bringing on people to actually tell those stories, right? And you guys are doing that exact same thing and hammering out the details. And I just love hearing you guys talk about the history of the kettlebell and the history of all, and how you approach injury or not injury, but recovery and how things have evolved from, how you trained before and how you're training now. And it's just these types of conversations, we're getting the good data. I mean, there's lots of amazing podcasts out there. Obviously we talked about Huberman, Peter Attia and all that, but I like the real life stories. I like to hear, what someone did, what someone's doing. That's why I love hearing you. Okay, what's your program with the KAATSU? What are the things that people can actually listen to and then apply to their life, right? Because it's really hard when you're just flooded with all this information to say, okay, now where do I start with this? And that's what I got just even listening to. I know that wasn't your intention being on that stage with Peter, but that's what I saw right away. And I was like, came up to you right after. I was like, dude, you guys got to keep doing this because this is so good. And I feel like you could help so many. I mean, you already are. You are helping so many people, but what a cool way to be able to talk story and share your knowledge because you have a shit ton in there, right? And you already are, but in a way that's really cool and collaborative with Peter and his stories as well. So I'm so stoked for you, man. I'm really excited to hear that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting and fun, and hopefully we can dissect down a lot of the, we'll say, what is fundamentals and useful in training and for performance and for injuries and everything else, and what are fads and misinformation, right? Because we're in a world where people are just trying to get attention.
Yeah. There's so much, there's so many gimmicks out there right now too. And I see it all the time, and patients come all the time. Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? And I'm like, that's just distracting you from doing the thing, right? Whatever that thing is that you need to do. And that's what I'm seeing a lot with it right now.
Yeah. My twin brother's good for that.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, did you do your foundation?
Yeah.
Oh, like, hey, KAATSU and foundation training, everything else is great.
Yeah.
But those are the boulders in the bucket. Those are your stones. Everything else, sprinkle it in. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then, but figure out what you need to sprinkle in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's no moss growing on you, as they say, right? You're go.
Nope.
What's next? Where are you headed off to? You're going to Oahu pretty soon, you're saying? Going to check in?
Yep, going to get back to Oahu. Tomorrow, actually, I'm really excited to go sit down and do a meeting with Coach Cal.
Yeah. Who is,
he helped I'll keep it surface level. One of our good friends that went through a bunch of crazy cancer stuff. Mm-hmm. This guy worked with him. That's always been an area that's had my interest from losing a lot of friends in the fire service. Cancer is super prevalent. What I saw him recover from was nothing short of a miracle. And, he put a lot of his faith in Christ and believes that all of that. And Coach Cal talks about that heavily, of being a vessel for Christ. I think that's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. It got my attention. And I was talking to our friend on Oahu about doing blood work. And he's like, go to Coach Cal. He's not a doctor, but you should go over your blood work with him.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and I stress, he is not a doctor. But to get his insights as a trainer and a coach and a very intelligent person, I wanted to see what he has to say. And then he just actually trained ComSot for the UFC, and all their training footage is nothing short of amazing. That's as a awesome trainer, I'm like, I hope I can get in with him where he'll let me come sit in and just learn and watch.
Yeah, cool.
So building relationships as always. But after I go through that, back to Oahu, trying to buy a new van for when I'm in California. My poor Argo has had its run. So new van, but then get back to Oahu for a couple weeks, train with KAATSU, see everybody, teach some foundation training for the local community, and do my home reset for a few weeks before it's back off.
Oh man. Well, anytime you're in the area, definitely swing by. We'll obviously take care of you. We're going to turn this thing into a studio so you can stay here anytime you want, and because you're always welcome. I love collaborating with you. I really do. Just the questions that you have, but also the knowledge you bring to the table that is new to me. You've brought so much to not just me, but to my patients, and how I'm able to kind of pass that along as well. Obviously, the relationship with KAATSU that I'm looking to grow and see how we can help get their name out as well to more and more patients. But not only that, just your receptiveness, your heart, your love, the emotions that you carry with you, and the spirituality that I know you have is really special, man. I'm so honored to be in your tribe and to be able to help raise the level in a very collaborative way for not only just our patients, but all the providers that are. And so thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the message that you share, and just for being in my tribe as well.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Honored as always. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming by. Please remember that this podcast is for informational purposes only. The ideas and opinions shared here represent our own and are not meant to be taken as medical advice. Listening does not create a doctor-patient relationship, and we always recommend speaking with a qualified healthcare provider for any health-related decisions. This show is independent of our professional roles and reflects our own personal perspectives.